Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Monday, January 12th. This is episode 91 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Hopefully everybody is doing well on this Monday after Super Wild Card Weekend. At the time of this recording, just a little over an hour away from the final game of the Wild Card Weekend slate as the Texans travel to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. By the time many of you are listening to this, if it's the next day, very well, there's a result already that's happened in that game. But a lot of results that we've got to get to in the previous 5 games that took place across Saturday and Sunday. Lots of good football, lots of exciting things to recap. Make sure to like and subscribe here on the channel. Content weekly from us here on Inside the Huddle. And DiMari, great weekend of football. One of the better super wild cards since they've expanded the playoffs. One of the better super wild card weekends. Not one of, I think it was easily the best. And really one of the better playoff weekends. Forget just comparing it to other wild cards. You talk about past divisional rounds. You talk about past championship Sundays. This was an awesome weekend for playoff football. And hopefully tonight we get another really good game. Again, at the time of this, game hasn't started, but hopefully, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, we got a really good game from the Texans and the Steelers. But how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. For the most part, majority of the games were pretty good. You've seen the Panthers team fight pretty hard where, a lot of the world probably thought they'd get blown out.
Yep.
Seen the Jacksonville team fight pretty hard, even though I know they came up short. But yeah, it's been a pretty good slate of football so far, pretty good wild card weekend, which it's kind of funny with that going on because, like I was just about to tell you before we actually started recording, saw Steelers fans say that with all the wild card games being fairly close, the government mandated blowout has to come tonight,
Yes.
and Pittsburgh is pretty nervous. So another very good one. Hopefully tonight we see two teams that deserve to be in the playoffs, and just excited that we are getting some good football around this time. But other than that, we got a lot to get into regarding yesterday and Saturday's game, so let's get into it.
Yes, that's a good point. There is always the one blowout during Wild Card Weekend, and tonight could be the night, and it could be the Texans going into Pittsburgh and dominating Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. And we very well still might be talking about Mike Tomlin losing his job, even though last week it felt like either Harbaugh or Tomlin would lose their job based off of the result of that game. Harbaugh did, but is Tomlin even just getting to the playoffs and winning the division, what was a down year for the AFC North? Is that even enough? So lot still hinges with Tomlin's future on today's game. And really, I feel like Tomlin's future kind of is just on a game-by-game basis at this point.
Yeah.
It's kind of just week-to-week, game-by-game, see what happens. If you lose tonight, how bad is it? If they get blown out the building and they don't even show up, is like they have typically on Wild Card Weekend. This is the Steelers special where they go out there and fall down early and then start to make a little bit of a comeback and then still get blown out in the end. So we'll see. But before we get to the games, you talk about Twitter, and 2 things I saw on Twitter. Number one, I'm sure you've seen it. The NFL, it's got millions of views, but the NFL memes page, speaking of the Steelers, with the Tyler Loop field goal. If it was to the right or left, it was Harbaugh fired. If it's in the center, it's Tomlin fired.
Yeah.
That might have been one of the most accurate memes I've ever seen. I don't even know if that's a meme. That's just like facts.
The truth.
It is the truth.
Yeah.
Tomlin doesn't have a job right now if Loop makes that kick, and Harbaugh doesn't have a job because he missed that kick. So it's that's one thing that I wanted to say. The next thing is just talking about this weekend before we dive into these games. There was a conversation some guy put on Twitter, like this was the best playoff weekend since whatever. And I kind of started to think, and I saw some of the replies, and you can make the argument that this was one of the best playoff weekends we've had. And, you can, maybe you have one in mind as well, just in recent memory since maybe 2021, the divisional round of 2021, because if you go back to that year's divisional round, which I had to actually go back and refresh my memory because I knew that was the year the Bengals made the run, but that was the 13 seconds year. That was the Bengals-Titans game, which was tight. It was a 3-point game. That was the year the Niners went into Green Bay and upset the Packers, which was essentially the kind of the Packers were undefeated. That was the snow game. Packers were undefeated. And I believe it was Robbie Gould, I think, who nailed the game-winning kick. And then the Niners the week later, they had the lead against the Rams. Obviously, they ended up winning. But then you had the Rams-Bucks, which was a 3-point game, and the 13 seconds with the Chiefs-Bills. So maybe you have some in mind, but this was easily probably the best weekend in 3 to 4 years here.
Yeah, to my memory, I mean, I agree. Majority of the games were very good. I mean, not extremely high scoring. We weren't seeing 40-point games, but hey, that's playoff football. And, unless you were born in the 1940s, 50s, or 60s, you probably enjoyed last night's game where not a lot of offense going. But then again, it shows like, hey, this is playoff football. This is when teams start to buckle down. Defenses start to buckle down. So, I enjoyed it. We talked about it off air as well. Seeing teams play each other for a third time. Like we've seen the Bears and the Packers play each other for the third time. Well, that's to come from it. We're getting Niners, Seahawks. So we're going to see them play for a third time. So, this first round has been pretty great. Games have been close. And again, teams who shouldn't have even been there, like the Panthers, are going out there and giving it their all and keeping it a game. I mean, as a football fan, whether your team is in it or your team isn't in it, you cannot complain. We had a very great weekend of football so far.
Yeah, 100%. And all the games, I think, were all super close, but in different aspects, right? You had the Panthers-Rams game, which early on, Panthers were making a ton of mistakes, and it looked like it was going to be a blowout. Kind of looked like what everybody expected, where the Rams went up 14-0. You had Carolina go for it on the first drive, failed, and then they had the interception, and it looked like they were going to run away with it, the Rams. And then Carolina started to clean up some of the mistakes. Rams had some of their own problems. They came back in the second half, made it extremely entertaining. Chicago was lifeless, came out in the second half. Green Bay made a ton of mistakes, and their offense went silent. Chicago came back, which they've done a ton this year. I think that's what made that game so great was that late comeback. The Jags-Bills game was back and forth the entire day. I saw this stat earlier. The largest lead in that game was 4 points. It was never a 2-score game. So it was always close. San Fran, Philly, same thing, close. Lower scoring, but a close game. And then, the Patriots-Chargers was bad, but it wasn't a blowout. It was just one touchdown scored. We'll talk about Justin Herbert, but he looked like the offense looked like they were seeing ghosts. And I don't know if you saw Robert Spillane's comments about the Chargers players telling him that they had no clue what the Patriots were doing on defense, like they were lost. That's a ton of credit to the Patriots defense, but it's also an indictment on the Chargers because they were obviously lost. They looked lost. But even that game, it was, 16-3. It was still a game at halftime. So all of the games kind of had a story of their own, and they were all really good. Now, starting with that Carolina game, just mention it. This was a game that early on was kind of going as expected. You had the Panthers go for that early fourth down on the first drive, which didn't work. Rams turn around like less than 2 minutes later, score a touchdown. You then get the interception by Bryce Young. Rams score again. And then you had the Panthers, even as the game went on, you had the muffed punt by Trevor Etienne. So there was a lot of mistakes from Carolina. Rams were taking advantage of them early, and then the Panthers started to play better. Rams made some mistakes. Stafford had the turnover, had the interception, couple bad throws. So just what was your thoughts on this one and kind of the way it went, which was a very Rams playing well, then Panthers played well, and then Rams just got it done late.
All respect to the Panthers. I mean, once again, this was a team that probably shouldn't have been there. You look at this team week 7, week 8, you're like, there's no way the Panthers are getting there, especially how the Bucs started off. So for the Panthers, I mean, I know you end up losing this game, and it was heartbreaking how you lost, but if you're a Panthers fan, I mean, you have to be confident in the direction of the team. You have to be confident in your quarterback and your head coach. You, at home, you kind of looked out of it. You're down 14. You kind of claw back into it against a team who I still believe very much can win the Super Bowl in the Rams, and you fought. And, I want to give credit to Bryce Young as well. This was, a guy last year we talked about Carolina and Bryce Young so much, who looks like probably one of the worst draft picks that Carolina could have ever made in the history of the team. And he got benched, and we know the whole story. I'm not going to go back through it, but just to be able to go out there and to stay in the game, to rally, to bring your team back, shout out to him. And I mean, honestly, this is the Panthers team, and I might be looking too far ahead, but for them to keep that game as close as they did with some of the things they got going on, like they need so much help at receiver, for instance. Like you're playing with a bunch of receivers that you guys aren't on the same page. You can tell yet you're not getting production from Xavier Legette. You're not getting too much production from your tight ends. You lost your Tavion Sanders. When Carolina gets their pieces together and they kind of continue to gel and figure it out, I think this can be a very good team to not say win a Super Bowl, but can win a playoff game or two. I really like what Carolina showed this week.
Yeah, I do. And I think you have to give a ton of credit and a ton of respect to Bryce Young. And I'm right there with you. I totally agree. That's the big thing I walked away from. Honestly, I walked away, and we'll get to the Rams here. I walked away more concerned with the Rams and more encouraged with the Panthers, despite the result, because you went into this game, it was a 10.5-point spread. Everybody, myself included, thought that the Panthers were going to get blown out of the building. Even though they beat the Rams earlier on in the season, it just felt like a typical playoff wild card weekend. Like this would have been, out of all the games, this would have been the one to be the blowout. And I think what you have to give credit to Bryce Young and this Panthers team is the way that they just battled all game. And I know that's kind of cliche. Oh, they battled, they fought, but it's the truth. They fell down 14-0 for a guy in his first playoff game, for a team that's relatively inexperienced when it comes to the playoffs, clearly lacking talent, against a team in the Rams who have all the talent in the world, have all the coaching in the world to get this team to the Super Bowl. To be able to go out there and come back from down 14-0 and chip away and force Stafford into some mistakes and lock down the Rams offense a little bit there for certain points, and then let your own offense take over. And I think what really, this is kind of maybe going to sound like a weird take, but Carolina made so many mistakes in this game, and it was a 3-point game. And I think that is something that you can at least look at and be happy about if you're a Panthers fan. As you remove some of the mistakes, we're probably talking about an 8-9 Panthers team moving on right now. So you clean those mistakes up in the offseason. They were 0 for 3 on fourth down. I thought the first drive of the game, that fourth down, I think was terrible. I understand Dave Canales. I get the whole trying to build some momentum. If you get the fourth down there, keep the drive going, go down and potentially score. But in your own territory like that, it's just, I think it's too early for that. And then, of course, the Rams ended up taking over and scoring there. Not saying that if they would have never went for the fourth down, it would be a different result, but you gave them great field position in your own, you're on your own territory. What the deal? It was like the own 40, 45 yard line. And that was the end of it. But I mean, the touchdown from Bryce Young was a beauty there at the end. And what do you think about, I guess, Bryce Young, because now the whole contract stuff pops up. Where do you think that heads now for Carolina? Because, again, you mentioned it, Jalen Coker, they've got Xavier Legette, Ted McMillan, but they're not overly talented. They're still very, very young. And I thought for the most part, there were some struggles, there were some mistakes, but I thought for the most part, Bryce Young did a lot of good things. What do you think is next for him from a contract standpoint?
I think you have another year to prove. I believe they picked up the 5th-year option on him, which is great. He's deserving of it. And I wouldn't pay him right now, of course, and we've talked about this before with teams kind of panicking and pay quarterbacks before the market value increases, whatever the case is. Because at the end of the day, Bryce Young has only had 1.5 good years. So, you don't rush to go ahead and pay him yet. But I think this is a guy, despite me saying, don't go ahead and pay him, I think you found your franchise quarterback. You found someone last year when he got his job back. Look how he needed to, what you expected when you drafted him. That's the Bryce Young you got last year when he got back from being benched. And also going into this year, this is a team we thought would be better. We didn't think they would make the playoffs, but we said, hey, 7 to 8 wins, we think that's enough. That's an increase. And he got them that. He did exactly what it was that he needed to do. So if I'm the Panthers, you got your franchise guy, but you wait another year. I think you see what he can bring from you. Well, get to you next year. You're in a division that's not too well, and hate to kind of bash the NFC South here, but the division is not going to be good for quite some time. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a while before we see anyone win 12, 13 in that division. So you see what Bryce can give you next year, and if we're talking about another division title and a playoff berth, of course, a playoff win, then you go ahead and pay him. But right now, I think you hold the brakes. But right now, he is deserving to be labeled as the franchise QB for Carolina.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to be very encouraged with Bryce Young. And again, we go back to the whole benching, and he's one of the examples that I'm sure 5 years from now, if Bryce Young really does turn into a star, that the next bust or the next guy that young quarterback gets benched, probably going to be the Jets quarterback. The next quarterback that gets benched, it'll be, oh, well, Bryce Young, right? We always go, there's so many examples of quarterbacks getting benched and working out. But then for all of those examples, there's, the Zach Wilsons of the world who get benched and stink. But Bryce Young, he had a good year. I think when we went back at the beginning of this season and kind of projected what to expect out of him, this was about it from a regular season standpoint. He went out there, gave his team a chance in the playoffs. He had some big throws. I thought late in that game, he went toe-to-toe with Matt Stafford. And that's, to me, a positive sign moving forward, despite the loss. But I think you look at this Carolina team, and I don't want to say they're going to turn into a juggernaut, but is it crazy to say that this is like their division to lose right now? Because you look at what's happening in Tampa, they're headed in the wrong direction. New Orleans with Shuck there's some positives there. Atlanta doesn't have a quarterback, they have a coach. Carolina with the young talent they have, yeah, they went 8-9 and just barely squeaked in, but I think this is kind of, they're building towards a 10-win season potentially, then really becoming a threat, if you will. So now you move on from the Rams standpoint. I was fully buying into the Rams, and I know that's your Rams Bills, which is still alive for you. My Super Bowl pick is dead. It's completely dead. If Ravens, Eagles, one loses in the wild card, the other doesn't even make the playoffs. I was so bought into the Rams winning the Super Bowl when they had those back-to-back weeks where they beat Arizona, they beat Detroit, they were on that long stretch. I know they had the Carolina loss in between all that, but it was that stretch where, they started 3-2, and then they won 5 games in a row. They won 7 of 8, and they were red hot. But then you had the loss to Seattle, you had the bad loss to Atlanta. To me, they just didn't look very good. What is your thoughts on the Rams, your Super Bowl pick? How optimistic are you that they're still the team to beat in the NFC? They're still a team that can get it done.
Probably a 5. I mean, they're not really playing very good football whatsoever, and you highlighted the losses. Yeah, it's very sloppy, and, shout out to Carolina's defense. And I know for people that's looking at the score of that game, you're like, the defense didn't play good. They gave up X amount of points, but they made Stafford uncomfortable, and that's how you beat the Rams. They made it very They made him very uncomfortable. I was throwing outside the numbers. He struggled during that game, and that is the way you beat the Rams. The only thing, the confidence level comes from you still have Sean McVay, and you have opportunities to bounce back. But I mean, this is the team you're kind of looking at. The rest of how everyone looked. You look at Chicago, Seattle, who is, if you want to say a juggernaut. You look at the Niners, who was very good, even though Kittle was going to impact, the loss of him is going to impact that team. You look at this Rams team and how inconsistent they've played, and you're just like, I don't think they beat any of those 3 teams right now with how well those other ones have played. But, that's where the experience comes in. That's where the experience of McVay and Stafford come in. But right now, if you're the Rams, and you got to clean it up. You got to clean it up, because if not, you will be going home next week.
Yeah, 100%. I think you talk about Stafford, right? He ends the day. You want to look at the numbers and say 304 yards, 3 touchdowns, and, they put up 34 points and they go on a win. But there is some context to that. Puka Nacua had to play lockdown defense to break up the 1 interception. Then Puka had a very uncharacteristic drop, which would have been a touchdown. That's a play he makes 10 times out of 10. Now, You do have to give credit to Stafford hitting Colby Parkinson there at the end to seal the game. That was a big throw, a beautiful ball. So they go down and end up scoring their game-winning drive. Carolina isn't obviously able to come back and at least even just tie it at the end there. So you do give him credit for that, but you had the almost interception where Puka had to break it up. You had the one interception. Then you had the Puka drop. Devontae Adams and Stafford were not necessarily on the same page. There was some misfires there. I mean, Devontae Adams got blown up on the one ball where he actually had to go out of the game. He was targeted 13 times. He had 5 catches. So there was a lot of bad stuff between those two as well there, for lack of a better wording. So they were sloppy. Like Devontae and Puka and Stafford, that is their bread and butter. That Puka play that he dropped, that's a play he makes all the time. A lot of those plays to Devontae are plays that Stafford and him connect on all the time, that they're just not connecting on right now. And they got to a point, too, where Carolina offensively was moving on this Rams defense, which it feels is kind of heading in the wrong direction as well. Earlier in the season, very stout. Recently, really since it feels like that Seattle game where they went out and were in that shootout, there's been some, I guess, bad or poor play there as well. So to me, they're like in the wrong opposite direction. We talk a lot about getting hot at the right time. To me, the Rams are hitting a slump at the wrong time. And look, I'm not saying that they can't win a Super Bowl. I still think there's a very good chance they do, but they are making mistakes that they haven't made this year at the worst possible time. And we just talked about how Carolina should be happy and their fan base should be happy with the direction of the team. But those mistakes you're going to be able to get over. You're going to be able to overcome those. There's the word. Overcome those against Carolina. You're not going to be able to overcome the Puka drops, the incompletions to Devontae, the almost and interception from Stafford on the road in Chicago. So they've got to clean it up a ton. Now, so you're a 5. I'm probably in the same range as well. What's the confidence level going into Chicago? Is that a 5 too?
That's a 5 too. I'm going to be so honest. I was talking about this actually yesterday. I don't care if the Bears go 20-0, winning a perfect season. I don't trust the Bears. I don't trust the Bears. I don't trust Caleb Williams. I don't know what it is. Like, I kind of get this vibe and this sense of, like, you know, the Chiefs and the Eagles when they won all these one-score games and then the script completely flipped. It feels that way with Chicago, not when it comes to one-score games, of course, but you're not going to be able to come back every single game down 14 plus, down 10 plus. At some point, it's going to catch up with you. And I don't know. I think maybe because Chicago's not playing fundamentally sound football because they sweep for a half and then they finally decide to come back. I don't trust them. I don't trust them one bit.
Yeah, I'm really starting to. I'm the opposite. I'm starting to buy into the Chicago Bears, and I said that after the win they had against the Eagles, which was going back now to Black Friday. I started to buy into them, and I know they've had some losses since, right? They had the loss to the Niners. They had the loss to, actually the week later, they ended up losing the Packers, but they ended up beating the Packers. There was that weird 2 games against the Packers in 3 weeks. Ever since that Eagles win, though, I don't know what it was about that, because honestly, looking back on it, it's not that impressive of a win because the Eagles are now out. But something about that win, I don't know what it was about that win, where I started to buy in. I didn't buy in all season, and I'm starting to really buy in. I still think when all is said and done, I think the Rams do probably win the game, but I don't know. I just, like, to me, the Rams are just playing such iffy football now that
it's bad football.
And the Rams are the type of team that they're loaded with talent. They're very well coached. They're the type of team that can go out the next week, put up 40 with no problem. And we will look back at this Carolina game without a blink in the eye. So it's, you know, from a Chicago standpoint, If they fall down to the Rams, do I think the Rams blow it like the Packers did? Probably not. So there is that. Now, speak of the Bears, speak of the Packers, perfect segue into game number 2 on Saturday, which both these games teased us because the early part of the Rams game, we looked like we were in for a blowout. Early part of the Packers game, we looked like we were in for another blowout. So really, the early parts of both these games, if you would have showed us the early parts of how these two games would start, I think everybody would have expected to be in for a pretty boring Saturday in terms of the outcomes, 2 blowouts. We started with the Panthers, the losing team, for good reasons that I think they should be optimistic about the future. I think we got to start with Green Bay. Good weekend for you. Green Bay loses, Eagles lose. What a train wreck. You go into halftime up 21-3. Now you had the missed kick. Brandon McManus, by the way, I'm surprised they let him back on the team plane because he doesn't miss those 2 kicks. He also missed an extra point. So he missed 3 total kicks in this game. But he doesn't miss the 2 field goals. We're talking about a totally different story. But he misses the 2 field goals, the one right before halftime, which I still don't think I don't want to sit here and say, oh, I knew the Bears were going to come back, but missing a kick before halftime when you have an opportunity to, go up 24-3, end the half on a high note where they got the ball back with about 1:20, got enough yards to get into field goal range to end the half with more points is the more points, the better. But, and I know we'll get into this more next week, but I don't know how the whole Matt LaFleur thing gets real interesting because a loss like this is where people lose their jobs. It's tough to defend him. I mean, they completely blew up in the second half. This was, for Matt LaFleur, who experienced this, very reminiscent to the 28-3 Falcons game.
Honestly, hot take here, maybe, maybe not. The Green Bay Packers were the biggest disappointment in football this year. I think by far. I mean, after the Parsons trade, we've talked about it. We're thinking 13, 14 wins because the defense is already good. You add Parsons to that mix, a great elite pass rush. You're like, okay, great. The offense can give you 20, 23 points a game. I don't see who's going to beat them. I don't see who's going to move the ball on this defense. And then you look at some of the losses. You lose to the Browns. You tie with the Cowboys when the Cowboys' offensive line was completely depleted. You give up 40 points. And they just didn't look good at all. But, this was such a underwhelming team all around. Offensively, very underwhelming. We've talked about it before. I think we're probably still on the same page. There's always a question mark with Jordan Love. And I'm not 100% blaming that game on Jordan Love completely yesterday. But, I mean, you're up 21-3. You got to move the ball in the second half. This goes back to Herbert and the blow, league in Jacksonville, which we will get into a little later. But there's 2 sides to the football. So, yes, the defense might have completely forgot how to play football, but you still have to move the ball. You still have to put points up on the board. Even if you don't put points on the board, you still have to be able to try to at least kill enough clock to keep your defense off the field. Like, there's a lot of other variables, and he failed to do that. But this Packers team, I mean, to be up 18, division rival, we talked about it, the beef between the 2 head coaches, and the second half just completely fumble. I'm right on board with you. As much as I like Matt LaFleur as a coach, and he's one of those ones I think we've talked about it before where there's like 3 guys where if they were fired, probably every team is calling to try to get him to coach the team. And Matt LaFleur is one of them. But I think I agree with you. It's so hard to defend him after blowing that game the way it did when your team was the Super Bowl favorite, or at least one of the Super Bowl favorites after the whole Parsons trade, and you don't even get out the first round. It's hard to defend them.
Yeah, 100%. And I know a lot of people will point to the Parsons injury and say, that they dealt with a lot of injuries this year. Micah Parsons, the biggest one. But you're spot on in terms of what took place this season and how disappointing they were. And they've honestly been disappointing all year. I mean, there was a lot of talk within that Green Bay locker room, let's be honest, when they beat the Commanders, the big, bad Washington Commanders in week 2. that, we had people saying this team might go 17-0. Remember those conversations?
Yeah.
There was people out there that thought this team could go undefeated. There was a lot of players you even heard in that locker room talk about it, where after they suffered the tie and then the loss and then the tie and some of the struggles, they were kind of like, we got to focus up a little bit. We're kind of looking too much at the big picture. This team early in the season was so overhyped. This quarterback is so overhyped. He was overhyped going into the season, and we talked about that. And I've defended Matt LaFleur a lot. We both have. We both don't think Jordan Love's very good, and LaFleur is kind of dealing with what he's got. But it's hard to defend a coach and an offense, and a coach that has an offensive background who's calling the plays. It's hard to defend him going up 21-3 in the first half where they were playing good football. Caleb Williams looked terrible. The Bears looked terrible. And I think what was most important with Green Bay is they had some long drives. They were, just moving the ball steadily downfield, having success against Chicago. Chicago really had no answers. It was a complete flip from first half to second half. Where then you go to the second half and they had the ball to start the second half. Like that right then and there was an opportunity to go down. And even after the missed field goal, you go up 28-3, forget about it. Game's over. 28-3 to open up the second half. Instead, they open it up with a 3-and-out, they punt. Then they punt again, and then they punt again. I mean, they didn't get a first down until late in the third quarter. Those two first drives were 3-and-outs. Their first 4 drives in the second half were punts. And the crazy part is Chicago, and this might contradict my belief in them because I'm not essentially giving Chicago much credit. I'm more bashing the Packers. The point is Chicago gave them this game. They were begging. Ben Johnson was begging Matt LaFleur to, instead of him saying F the Packers, he was asking Matt LaFleur to say F the Bears in the locker room. He was begging him. Even when the Packers were having a rough start to the half, the Bears only took those 4 drives and had 2 field goals, and then Caleb Williams had the pick. So they weren't even taking advantage. I mean, they had 3 points in the third quarter. This was still a 21-6 game going into the fourth quarter, no matter how bad it looked for Green Bay. And then Chicago started to have some success, and Green Bay then missed that late field goal, and then they had, allowed Chicago to go down and very quick, what was a very fast drive, go down and score, where Caleb Williams found the wide open DJ Moore, and it's too little too late. And, what was crazy is, what was it, with 3 minutes left, they went up 27-16. So no matter how, as bad as it was, Chicago wasn't taking the game. The Packers scored, made it an 11-point game, and right then and there you felt like it's over. That's it. And they end up coming back, scoring the 2 touchdowns. I mean, the final 3 drives, they scored touchdowns. So, to me, it goes back to the third quarter. Like, they have a better third quarter. They have a better start to the half. We're talking about a Packers blowout win. But Chicago didn't want to take the game because they didn't play very well in the third. They only came away. They had a field goal and interception on their 2 drives in the third. That was it. And in the fourth quarter, the defense fell apart. They had the 3 touchdown drives late. The offense woke up for that 1 drive, but it was too little too late. And to me, that just falls on coaching. When you have a collapse like that, it falls on coaching. And LaFleur, I've already seen this, is just talk about Twitter. I've already seen the Matt LaFleur, Matt Ryan next to each other in the Super Bowl when they lost 28-3. So, sounds like he's staying there. But I guess from the Bears' perspective, what are your thoughts? And any other thoughts you have on LaFleur?
I just, quickly briefing on him, I think he's going to stay. I mean,
yeah, I think so.
What else is out there? You don't want to gamble and, completely. He's built that team. I don't necessarily say the ground up, but when Rodgers left, we're just like, oh, this team is cooked. It's going to be a very long rebuild. And I think he's built them back up so, you don't move on from that. You got to bounce back next year. But the Bears, the Chicago Bears.
Cheese graters round full effect.
As much as I don't trust the Chicago Bears, this might contradict. a lot of what I'm going to say. I respect them. I respect them. I mean, you find ways to come back and win games. The level of pettiness from the first time Caleb Williams beat Green Bay, he had the cheese grater on his head at the food giveaway. And then you go and beat him this time, you got the cheese grater again. I love it. And we talked about it off air. Bring hate back to football. Bring rivalries back to football. We got too many of these guys that want to party on yachts together during the off season and work out together. Bring hate and true rivalry back to football. And honestly, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's good for the sport. You mentioned it off air. You're the one that said it was good for the sport. I am in agreement with you. It's great because next year I can't wait to watch Green Bay and Chicago twice. It makes it exciting. But just back to the strictly football part of it. This is what they drafted Caleb Williams to do, and he did it. I mean, last year, this was a guy we're just like, oh, the Bears made a mistake. They're dead in the water. Like, we're about to go back to the whole Mitch Trubisky thing once again, and we're looking at a quarterback. Caleb Williams can't figure it out. They did everything they've done for him. They brought on all these weapons on offense, coaching changes, defensive weapons, and he finally figured it out. I respect it. I mean, I got to give respect to the Bears. This is a team that has been through just so much adversity when it comes to playoff time, the double doink, all the things they've been through, and they finally found a way to, figure it out. And it's better when you beat a divisional rival who has owned you for many, many years. So this is a Bears team. I mean, I'm so excited to watch them play next week against the Rams. That's going to be a good one. But I'm going to take it week by week. I'm not going to jump ahead. But as of now, I mean, the Bears, if they get down 10, 13 points, that's right where they want to be, and you better look out.
Can I make a declaration or just a statement here? Here we are again. Jets hired the wrong Lions coordinator.
They got to hurt. That does have to hurt. Yes. It's a coin flip, and you messed it up.
Yep. What else is new, right? They never get the coin flip right. But no, in all seriousness, I was skeptical about Ben Johnson. And I look back on it, I think I'm very stupid for being, obviously I'm very stupid. I make myself look stupid being skeptical on him. The reason why I was skeptical is I wasn't very high on Caleb Williams, especially after last year. And I know the whole Matt Eberflus, who now doesn't even have a job with the Cowboys. I'm sure you're happy about that as well. Matt Eberflus is gone. It's crazy, actually. Just a side note. Matt Eberflus's career has just been all downhill since the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary, because the Bears were 4-2 going into that game. They win that game, they're 5-2. They're riding high. A lot of people forget that. I mean, last year they finished 5-12, but they started the year 4-2. They were riding high. They had that 3-game win streak, and they were seconds away from beating the Commanders. You get to 5-2, I don't think they collapse. I think you have a deflating loss like that can collapse the locker room. You get to 5-2, I think there's a very good chance they might be a playoff team last year, and Matt Eberflus is probably still the Bears coach. So you can make the case that Hail Mary is actually the best thing that happened.
Yeah.
Because you probably don't have Ben Johnson. Honestly, they probably go on the rest of the way that season, muster up 9-10 wins, make the playoffs, and Eberflus is probably still here. But the point being is he's just been on downward spiral. The Hail Mary happens. They lost. They fell to 4-12. I think they didn't win again until the final week of the season. And now he gets fired after 1 year with the Cowboys. But the reason I think I was skeptical of Ben Johnson is just I didn't have a ton of belief in Caleb Williams. And I didn't love the way that Ben Johnson carried himself in the early parts of being the coach. He came in, right? He was very cocky. I don't have a problem with that. But it wasn't so much I had a problem with that. I just didn't think he'd be able to back that up, if you will, if that makes sense. But I'm right there with you. We talked about it a little bit off air. I think it's great. I think people that are upset at the whole F the Packers, upset at the whole handshake, that's what this sport needs. That's what this sport's all about. That's what rivalries are all about, especially rivalries like this, rivalries as old as Bears-Packers, especially a rivalry that the Packers have dominated. We talked about it off air. Aaron Rodgers dominated this rivalry. So Bears are now giving it back to the Packers a little bit. And they can talk all they want. And what I respect, and like you said, what I respect about the Bears is that they're backing it up. It's one thing to go out there and say, oh, I love beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. It's one thing to go out there and say, oh, I hate the Packers, F the Packers, all this stuff. It's another thing to go out there and beat them. And they split in the regular season. They had an opportunity in this game, and the Bears got the last laugh, and they're still dancing, and the Packers are at home. And now what I think makes this great is you look forward to the 2 games next year, and now the Packers, now next year's your chance. Yeah. This time next year, you get to face them again, knock them out, and then you can give it right back to them. And that's what rivalries are all about. So I'm right there with you. I think, what are they supposed to do? Hold hands at the end of the game, Ben Johnson and Matt LaFleur? Like, come on now. They don't like each other, and that's totally okay. It's better than Matt Eberflus and Matt LaFleur going to watch a Bucks game together or whatever.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to see pictures of coaches in these rivalries. Like right now, if I seen Schottenheimer and Nick Sirianni in the offseason a picture together smoking cigars on the beach, I'm like, we're not a serious franchise. Yeah. So I love it.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I think it's good, especially a rivalry like that, right? Yeah. As old as it is, NFC North, AFC North, NFC North, it's just a different style of football. It's a different style of just kind of nastiness. So, right there with you. And we now look forward to seeing what the Bears can do against the Rams. This could be a very possible, if it snows in Chicago, we're going to be talking about, if it didn't snow, Rams would have won one of those games.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to the Sunday slate. Bills, Jaguars kicked us off. It's funny. I don't think this game gets as much credit for how good it was because it was 1:00. It was Bills, Jaguars. It wasn't a rivalry. It wasn't, the Jaguars aren't a team that's going to, how's the best way to, Jaguars aren't like a prime big market team. But this was a very good game. And I think probably points, score, pound for pound, just the entire game, arguably the best game of the weekend. What are your thoughts on this one? I guess we'll start with the Bills. They go out, pick up a big win. It wasn't all pretty, but they get the job done, and now they head to Denver, and Josh Allen's still alive. He gets his first road playoff win, and Bills are still marching along. I still have no clue how the AFC is going to play out. Honestly, I still have no clue.
Yeah. Well, NFL script writers were in their bag. This was a Broncos team, kind of just a quick fast forward to next week. This Broncos team went into high mark last year that probably shouldn't have been there. We thought the Broncos were going to be pretty bad, and that was kind of the start of where they are right now. Was that loss to Buffalo last year? So it's good to see them be able to face up again for a second year in a row in the playoffs. But, for Buffalo, shout out to Josh Allen. You're out there throwing to a bunch of Tiger Kingdom workers, and you got the job done. Brandon Cooks kind of, went back in time there. We've seen the younger version of Brandon Cooks. He had a big game. And what surprised me most with Buffalo, obviously, we know how good Jacksonville's run defense was. But the fact that you kind of, the thing in the NFL, it's just like if a team can't run the ball that well, you don't expect them to look too well offensively. You kind of see them struggle. And it really wasn't much of that with Buffalo. They stayed into it. They could not run the ball. But Josh Allen was Superman. I mean, if you needed Super Josh yesterday, that's exactly what he gave you. And for a Bills team that had not won a playoff game on the road in his career, I mean, I think that's a statement for Josh Allen, kind of to the doubters that, like, hey, I can do this. And Josh Allen, I'm going to say, saved himself a lot of slander as well with that win. I mean, you losing wild card round in a year where there's no Burrow, no Mahomes, no Lamar, oh boy, you are in for a off season of noise. So shout out Buffalo, they got the job done.
Yeah, definitely. And 0-4 in the wild card, or 0-4, I should say, on the road, going into this game. So got the job done there. So he ends that streak, doesn't go to 0-5. And this was also crazy to think this, because he walked off the field with 13 seconds against the Kansas City Chiefs and had the lead. This was his first game-winning drive in his career in the playoffs, which is crazy to think, but it is. It was his first game-winning drive. that late drive there to go on top 27-24, where he had the breakdown in coverage and for that 36-yard bomb or 30-plus yard bomb to Brandon Cooks, and then the good old Josh Allen 11-yard tush push, if you want to call it, or as Jim Nantz said, push tush. Did you hear him say that? Push tush?
Yeah, push
As Jim
tush.
Nantz
Always
said, and
call
then
it push tush.
he ended up scoring anyway with another 1-yard tush push. But yeah, this was a much needed win for the Bills. They needed to win this game. Like, you can't, in a year with no Lamar, Burrow, or Mahomes, you can't, especially a team against Jacksonville, first time head coach. Josh Allen's just better than Trevor Lawrence, flat out. He is. You can't go on the road and lose to Jacksonville. This had to be a game you won. And more importantly for Allen, this was the year where you had to end the road streak, because you're going on the road the entire playoffs. It's official with the Chargers losing yesterday that the Bills won't play another home game. So you have to be able to be road warriors. You have to be able to go on the road and have success and get the job done. And they were able to do that yesterday. And look, Khalil Shakir had a great game. Awesome game for him. They clearly tried to get him the ball, and they had a ton of success doing that. Brandon Cooks, still got it. I mean, that receiving core is ugly, but they get it done. I mean, Keon Coleman even had that one long catch for 36 yards. It wasn't necessarily a big day for the run game. I mean, James Cook didn't do a whole lot on the ground, and the Jaguars rushing defense-wise, very, very stout there. But they got the job done. I still don't know how to feel about Buffalo, because you mentioned it. They get the rematch now against Denver, this time in Denver. I don't trust Denver. This is where we're at with the AFC. Yeah. I really don't. I don't trust Denver. I still don't necessarily know if I trust the Bills, because I still don't think the win yesterday was all that pretty. And we know that what their deficiencies are. And the fact of the matter is they just haven't gotten it done in the playoffs. Every year we go through this with the Bills. So what's different now? I don't know. I think there's a very good chance they beat the Broncos next week. If there was a team, to me, the best team left probably is the Bills. But with how they've gone in the playoffs, right? Because I didn't love what I saw from New England. I don't trust anybody in the AFC. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, from the Jacksonville perspective, what was your thoughts? Was this kind of a come back down to earth on the Trevor Lawrence hype train type of game?
No, Trevor Lawrence has gained a new respect from me. I still think he has more to prove. Obviously, when you come in the league labeled as generational and you have not been generational, even though you had a very good year this year, there's going to be a lot of added pressure. But I think this team has a very good chance at being very good for years to come. I mean, Liam Cohen has proved once again, obviously the 1 year in Tampa as the offensive coordinator. Now you go into this year, you win. All he does is win when he is in charge. So I think this team is going to be, very good. You got very good pieces. Your defense is very good. It's just one of those losses. You look back at it, and obviously you wish a few other things. I talked about it off air where going forward early after the fumble and not converting, not getting any points. Those type of things hurt you. And you look back and it's like, maybe something different here, something different here. We're talking about a different result, but I don't think this team is a fluke whatsoever. I think we are going to be talking about Jacksonville once again next year, probably with another home playoff game in the same position, but this time with a chance to win. I think they have finally, and Liam Cohen has finally got out of Trevor Lawrence what we've been waiting on to see, and I think he's only going to get better.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think you mentioned with the Jaguars, I think this is just the start. I don't think this is another Doug Peterson instance where it's kind of a 1 year thing and it falls apart. And let's be honest, when you look at Jacksonville, they're in a very good place in the AFC with the way they played this year. The way that division is, right? They won the division in the NFC South, or the AFC South, rather. Houston's been really good, but they're the 5 seed. Jacksonville, just the way the AFC is right now, I feel like there's a very good chance that they can build this and be sustainable with this and come back next year and have another strong show and get better in some spots. I will say Parker Washington had a huge day yesterday. Big day for him. But really, this was a team that you went into the offseason. There was so many issues with them. And you have to give Liam Cohen a ton of credit for fixing a lot of the issues, right? They couldn't run the ball last year. They were able to run the ball this year. Trevor Lawrence was heading in the wrong direction. Liam Cohen came in. You saw what he did with Baker Mayfield in Tampa. He did just that here with Trevor in Jacksonville. And now you saw what Baker Mayfield did 1 year without him. Receiving core-wise, they were able to overcome Brian Thomas Jr. having an awful year. They brought in Kobe Myers. Parker Washington played a big role yesterday. They got it done. And I think you give a lot of credit to the coaching staff for that. Now, I have to ask you about the end of the first half. To me, that was a botched call. What was your thoughts on the call? It was kind of a very ball don't lie type of moment because they ended up missing the kick anyway. But one thing I will say that also made this wild card weekend great is, other than this instance here, we're not talking about any games being decided by the refs.
Yeah.
So that was good. A lot of these crazy endings could have been decided by the refs, but they weren't. But what was your thoughts on that instance? Now, if they missed a kick, it doesn't matter. But if they make that kick, that's a different game because it's 27-27 after the Bills score, and who knows? I mean, I guess if you're a believer in the outcomes, then the Bills would have picked off that Trevor Lawrence pass, and they probably would have kicked the game-winning field goal anyway at that point. But would have been a different game. What was your thoughts on the whole Walker Little getting set, clock zero, interesting situation?
Well, as someone who bet on the Jags yesterday, I thought it was a great call. I mean, absolutely. But realistically, it was awful. It was no time on the clock whatsoever. It was just a bad call all around, but it did definitely feel like a ball don't lie type of thing. And yeah, I mean, if that kick goes in, we're talking about a whole different game, but just kind of seemed like a canon event for what the rest of what needed to go on for the rest of that game. But terrible officiating on that call, I can tell you that.
Yeah, it was not very good at all. They even brought in, was it Gene Steratore, I think they brought in, and even he said that it's halftime clock hit triple zeros. They obviously saw something. Now, I know the Bills player was late getting back, and I know there's the whole play clock is always extended by about a half second because it's when the ref looks up at the clock up on the board is when they call it. So you see this a lot with delay games where clock will hit zero, teams will get the snap off like a half to a little less than a half a second later. They won't call it because there's a slight delay when the ref sees it. So I guess it's that. It doesn't matter, which is good because, we don't have to talk about a ref deciding this game, but that was definitely a questionable call. Something that I wanted to bring up with you. Now, two more games here. Eagles, Niners, Patriots, Chargers. We'll start with the Eagles, Niners. Another good ending for you. Good ending for me. Hate the Eagles as well. I think most of America feel like probably are done with Eagles fans, happy that they don't have to hear from Eagles fans anymore, except just see their tears. Gotta love the Eagles, though, right? Just a year ago, they won the Super Bowl, and now it's fire the coach. OC's terrible. Get rid of the quarterback. A.J. Brown, trade him. They want to do a fire sale outside of Lincoln Financial Field.
Well, I'm gonna go a little rapid fire here. I know you said you got to wrap up pretty soon here. We're gonna keep it nice and simple with Philly. With no run game, it's not a very good football team whatsoever. We proved it this year. Obviously, Saquon on the off year, but if you leave the ball in the hands of Jalen Hurts, and I just sound like a complete hater, but he's proved it. He's shown it. You leave the ball in the hands of Jalen Hurts, they're not going to win you a lot of football games. He's not going to win you a lot of football games. And I'm honestly not surprised with what I've seen out of Philly. Yesterday, obviously, I think this is yesterday was A.J. Brown's last game in a Philly uniform. There'll be a lot of changes come the offseason, but I mean, this is not a very good football team. And if you know the truth about Philly football, you've known this years ago when they collapsed after being a 10-1 and stinking it up.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the classic every other year with Philly. Super Bowl stink, Super Bowl stink. So if we're going on this trend, they should make the Super Bowl next year. But yeah, the run game wasn't the same, and that showed. They didn't do enough design runs for Jalen Hurts. Kevin Petula was awful. A.J. Brown yesterday with the drops. There is a lot of problems there. I don't think they're gonna stink next year, I know there is a lot of people that think this is the end of the run for this like era of Eagles football. I think Sirianni stays, and I think they probably should do everything they can to go and hire a Mike McDaniel or somebody like that to get some creativity back into this offense, because you saw what Kellen Moore was able to do. Which then raises the question of, and I will be honest, I've defended Sirianni a bit, but it does raise the question of, like, what does Sirianni do well as a coach if he needs an elite offensive coordinator?
Is he the guy? That's all that makes you think. Is he truly the guy, or is he the one getting all the credit while the OCs and the DCs are the one, keeping this thing afloat?
And that was what was just so perplexing about this season with the Eagles is they could never get on the same page. They were a tick off all year, but they for whatever reason, they just went away with what worked last year. It's so strange. They just went away with what worked. I saw this stat earlier today. Like, there was like 43 design runs for Hurts this season. Last year, there was like 99. They completely took away his running ability. He's not a pocket passer. He's not anything close. And Jalen Hurts as well just didn't have a very good year. But I don't think they put him in a very good position to have a very good year. Nobody said Saquon was going to repeat from 2,000 yards, but he went from 2,000 yards to 1,100 yards. I mean, that's a big drop-off. You would think Saquon could have at least went out there and put up 1,300, 1,400 yards. Even he didn't have necessarily a very good season. So the run game was a mess. And then you have A.J. Brown and the whole Sirianni dynamic. Then you have A.J. Brown with the drops. They've got a lot of things to fix. In terms of San Fran, another brutal injury with George Kittle going down. What is your thoughts on this win, though? The Juwan Jennings touchdown pass again. Honestly, maybe the Jets should sign Juwan Jennings, because when he's called on to throw passes, he's pretty good. You look at the Super Bowl, you look at yesterday's game, but San Fran gets some redemption from losing to them 2 years ago, where you had the Brock Purdy when he got hurt. They go and get some redemption, and I know we were both kind of on the San Fran +6 train, but you got to give a ton of credit to San Fran, Kyle Shanahan specifically, who could be a dark horse for coach of the year, because the amount of injuries that this team has faced, some of the struggles they've gone through to go out there and pick up a win like this, on to Seattle for a repeat of what we saw 2 weeks ago.
I'm right there with you. I mean, this is a team we talked a lot about in the offseason. Is the run over? Is Shanahan's time done? Could this be the last season? And now we're talking about them in the second round of the playoffs, and it just worked out perfectly for them. They got matched up with Philly, who's a team that neither one of us believed in going into this year. But I mean, credit to San Fran, just like you said, all the injuries. Mac Jones started some games here. Now you lose Kittle. Warner's been out. Bosa's been out. Shanahan is a genius. I think a lot of teams, if they dealt with this many injuries, we're not talking about them sitting in the playoffs. We are looking to next year like, hey, how can we get back with, when everyone comes back healthy? So for the Niners, unfortunately, it's probably spoiling something for next week. I think the injuries do catch us in the next week, and they end up losing to Seattle. But I mean, it's been quite a run. Shout out San Fran.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of right there with you. I do think there's a very good chance Seattle wins big next week, but honestly, we're probably talking about a 5-12 team for a lot of teams that aren't coached by Kyle Shanahan with this group. Have you seen the factory that's next to their facility? I have. It's honestly intriguing.
Yeah,
because they're the only team that continues to go through this.
It's not crazy. I don't know if the stat was since. Might have been like 2021, I think I saw. Mm-hmm. They've been the most injured team since whatever that is, either 21, 22. And I've seen some scientists kind of pitching about some things, and it kind of makes you think, like, this is insane.
Yeah, it does. It does make you wonder. I'm curious if they will actually look into that, if that's something that ends up becoming a bigger thing. We'll see. I mean, the real test will be the Super Bowl's being played there. Now, I know it's long periods of time if you're exposed to a facility like that, but probably the NFC team, if I had to guess, will probably practice there if the Niners aren't, obviously, because usually, it's one team practices at the team's facility and the other team sometimes will practice at like a college. Like I remember when the Super Bowl was at MetLife, Broncos used the Jets facility and the Seahawks used the Giants facility. So I wonder if the Super Bowl team that uses their facility, like if there's injuries that happen in that game. Now it's only a week technically that they would be there, but I don't know. It's interesting, and it's something I'm wondering if San Fran ever looked into. Anyway, one final game, easily probably the worst game of all of them, and it really wasn't that it was like a blowout. It was just bad football. One touchdown scored. It was 6-3 at halftime. The Chargers were lost. I think Justin Herbert, we could start with him because this is a guy that was drafted in the 2020 draft and the same year as Joe Burrow. And we're sitting here. He does not have a playoff win.
Yeah, it's time to have an uncomfortable conversation. And you watch that game, and you don't want to put all the blame on Justin Herbert. It's brutal. If you watch the game, every single time he took a snap, it seemed like you had a Patriots defender smelling his breath. Like it was horrible. Yeah. The offensive line was horrible. I don't know if for the viewers that understand the reference, but the Drewski meme, you got a bunch of Drewskis blocking for Justin Herbert yesterday. It was bad. It was bad. But then again, you look at some other things. You look at Joe Burrow dealt with the same thing. He got to the Super Bowl that year. Yeah. And it's just he didn't elevate. He's 0-3, and you look at Justin Herbert and just during the playoffs, the only thing he's done so far is blow a 27-point lead. You had the absolute stinker against Houston. And now this. You have not performed well come playoff time. And again, I'm not going to put all the blame on him. A lot of factors. They didn't have a run game. The offensive line can't block for anything. Lat McConkey forgot how to play football all of a sudden from last year to this year. Keenan Allen's old. Like, there's a lot of factors. But, I mean, then again, come playoff time, we see quarterbacks elevate, and Justin Herbert has not yet elevated his team in a playoff scenario. And, I mean, I hate to say it. I hate to break it. I'm going to sound like a hater. But as of now, I'm going to call it for what it is. In 6 years, he's a great regular season quarterback. Come playoff time, you cannot trust Justin Herbert until he changes that narrative.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right there with you. You talk about, I think the Burrow example is a great example. He's a guy that elevates guys around him. He did that during that Super Bowl run. Herbert isn't that. Marion Hampton barely played a role yesterday. I know he was dealing with the ankle, but like, why was he active if he was right? Yeah. Like, he barely
I agree.
played.
So, he had one carry, if I remember. Yeah. It might have actually been one carry.
For -1 yards.
Yeah.
Big numbers. So I don't know what the deal was. They couldn't get anything going on the run game. They were lost. I mean, it was awful. I think they were 1 of 10 on third down. The amount of just punts, and then they had the couple, they went for it, twice, I think, late, and then they had and they couldn't get anything. They couldn't get anything passing wise over like 10 yards. It was terrible. Thoughts on the Patriots? They pick up a win. It was ugly, and now they welcome whoever wins tonight.
This is going to sound crazy. This is what you want to see from a playoff team. Offense is not rolling. Offense doesn't look too good. We know the offense can be good. We have seen how good that offense is all year long. So, for you to go into a playoff game, not play your best ball, it happens. It is what it is. That's playoff football. So for them to come out and not look that good on the offensive side, but the defense to dominate how they did, I think that's what you want to see from a team. Because when one aspect of the game is not working, the other one can pick up. I mean, there's 3 units in football for a reason: offense, defense, special teams. 1 unit, 2 units have to pick up when the other one can't get going. And I mean, that Patriots defense, they were flying. They were flying. If the Bills, the Broncos, whoever advances, Houston tonight, the winner this one, you hate to see this Patriots team come next week. You hate to see this defense, because if that defense is going to look that good throughout the postseason, the offense isn't going to struggle like that for the rest of these games. The offense are going to pick it up. I know you say you don't trust anyone, but I think New England has to be the most trusted team at the moment, despite the offense not looking good. But we know how they can look if they play complete football.
Defensively, all over the Chargers, and schematically, they are just dominant. And they had Herbert and that Chargers offense completely lost. Vrabel's done a great job. You mentioned, all right, we mentioned that they play the winner of tonight's game. To close things out, who do you have winning tonight? Still on the Houston train.
Yeah, we're still going Houston. If there's a world where Pittsburgh wins this game tonight, I think I'm done with sports. But I don't see Pittsburgh scoring more than 16 points tonight. Give me Houston.
Yeah, I agree. I think Houston will win as well. I've had this weird feeling during the week, though, that Pittsburgh might win. But I think it's Houston. I think they get the job done. And we look forward to another challenging Houston divisional round road game because they had to face the Ravens 2 years ago, then the Chiefs last year, and now they'd have to go into Foxborough. So it hasn't been easy for them, but we'll see. So anyway, that'll do it. Appreciate you all, as always, for tuning in. We'll be back next week with the divisional round discussion. We'll have a lot of talk about the coaching carousel, all the openings, all things like that. So appreciate you all, as always, and we'll talk to you next week.